Let's do it.
All right. Welcome back to the Shuttlecock podcast. My name is Aaron Rhodes, and the podcast is sponsored by the Vinyl Underground at 7th Heaven, offering new and used vinyl at 76th and Troost. This week on the show, we have none other than Jonathan Brokaw, a.k.a. JB. What's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Cool.
So you live in this house with me.
I do. No bias.
The good old Kum-N-Go. Yeah, no, I just happened to choose you this week, and not because you live in the room next to mine, and it was very easy.
Well, we do barely see each other either because I'm very antisocial. So, but I mean, it's not you. It's a me thing. I'm a lone wolf, you know.
That's
wolf.
good. That's good to know. I get hurt sometimes.
Oh, I'll give you hugs every time I see you from now on. So
that's exciting. That's how you start a podcast.
Yeah, with love. So we live at Kum-N-Go. It's a good house.
No, yeah. How long have you been living here?
I moved here March 2015. I was living with my synth player in an apartment off of Roanoke, like 41st and Roanoke, and moved here with my girlfriend at the time, and moved here. There was 5 of us. It was Mackenzie Colby and Ashley Pratt and Sybil Watson and Sam Squarick and I. And Mackenzie actually was the first one to have the idea of having some parties reminiscent of when this place used to be Asshole Castle, and but a little bit more of the tame hipster side of things. And then I took it to the extreme as like, let's just have more shows, and that just became the name for Kum-N-Go. Also came from Kinsey. I got to give credit where credit's due. She came up with the name because if there's a garage door, or not a garage door, a gas station door on the front porch. So there you go. So yeah.
No, but yeah, as you mentioned, it used to be called Asshole Castle when it was like primarily like a hardcore and punk house. I don't remember
traditional punk house. So
who all lived here back then. I know Brett Ray lived here for a minute.
I think he set a couch on fire and threw it out the window. Is what I've heard from Lore.
Yeah, there's many tales of.
Yeah. I know that. I think Andrew Perry lived here. And God, I don't know. I want to say like. I'm not gonna get it right.
But yeah, that's back when the Truce DIY Fest was happening. Yeah. Also, so Dark Ages and like Battle Royale played here, and then I remember there's like a bunch of touring bands that I remember seeing Facebook events of, but I didn't go to those shows. I'm pretty sure Code Orange played here once when they were Code Orange kids.
Weird.
Which I would have been so excited to see.
Yeah, I wish I knew more, but
I know you don't care about that. No, you don't have to pretend to care about that.
Okay.
And I think also like Wrong Answer and Agitator played here too. Another couple tough hardcore bands.
Yeah.
But yeah, what bands have all played here during the Kum-N-Go era?
We had a Giant Dog play here once. Mostly actually a lot of local bands, because a lot of the big shows that we had were like just like the Halloween parties that we had here. So basically every local band you could think of that was even kind of remotely related to the garage rock stuff going on. If I try to like go back on that inventory, my mind is Swiss cheese, so I'm not gonna be able to like pick it all out. I know Lemonade's played here, so that's another band. That's
Lemonade and Bib played here.
Yeah, that's right.
Like that was like one of the last shows really before the house kind of slowed down for a minute.
Yeah.
So.
Because what ended up happening is I got back from tour with Little Toughies because I wasn't even here for that show, and it was still kind of a mess, and I'm an asshole, and I was like, no, I don't want to have any more fucking shows. If no one's going to help clean up and I'm just going to end up being the only person to do this, I'm putting my foot down. So, yeah.
No, but yeah, and flashback to like a month or two ago, we had the Shuttlecock show here.
Yeah.
And that was with Devil's Den and Solomon. Lots of fun at that show.
Yeah.
And there wasn't even that big of a mess, but like Seth had to tell me to like stop cleaning up like the night of the show. He's like, "Hey,
just
chill,
let it
chill
go."
out.
It is better to just let it all go, not think about it, and then just enjoy it not enjoy it the next day. Obviously, the next day it sucks, but just slowly clean up the week after. But yeah, you've got like a couple shows coming up, right?
Yeah, it'll be fun. Make sure you're looking out. We got Crystal and Nightcrawlers playing here on December 16th for the Shuttlecock party. And then there's like another hardcore show that'll be here around then. But yeah, also, some more Kum-N-Go history. You filmed KC DIY Yoda here.
Yeah.
That's the web show. What does that stand for, JB?
It stands for Kansas City Do It Yourself, You Only Die Alone. And
what a name.
The name for it came from my friend Carrie Thomas, who's in Phantom Head. She actually helped write the theme song way back in the day when it was like I tried doing it as a live stream thing in the apartment I lived in with Zach. It was a complete disaster, but at least I got the name out of it in the theme song from Carrie. So, it's like, a twist on YOLO, which everyone was saying at the time, because this is like 2012, 2013, I guess. And it was like, you only die alone, because it's true. You can do it yourself all the way to the grave. And that's a comforting thought.
What were some of like the bits and the guests that you had on that show?
We had the last show. We had Shy Boys. We also had the Whiffs. We had Alice on there.
Drippies, I think.
Yeah, Drippies were. Yeah, Drippies were the first show. Yeah,
and then that recording turned into like their live tape. So
yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Cool. That's good. There's some. Good
that was actually like some of the best. Those are the best recordings that band has besides like the ones they made for the 7-inch that they didn't put out, which they ended up putting on tape. But I haven't listened to it yet since my tape player broke.
Yeah.
Well, someone sent me a tape player.
They got some use out of it because I'm like, those videos, I can't go back and watch them. They're very cringy. I mean, we were intentionally making it kind of campy because we knew there was no way we were going to make it seem, there's no way we were going to shoot above our station, above our budget with any of that stuff. So we were just like, let's just go full camp with it. And now, though, it's painful to watch and look back on.
You'll have fun watching it in like a couple more years, I think.
I got to get some more time, some distance between it. Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess to backtrack a little bit, what was your first introduction to like rock and roll music? What were your favorite bands?
Like my first introduction to rock and roll music?
Yeah, just like when did you like latch on to?
My dad had like a bunch, well, even before that, my dad would always just like have the oldie station on when I was a kid. So like all the British Invasion bands and bands I listened to when I was a kid just by proxy. And then he also had like some records that were like, he had like a bunch of Queen's records and stuff like that because he was like, I don't know, he's not like a rock and roll dad though, because like I have a lot of friends who like that's how they got into rock and roll. They have like the parents are like, or they're part of their family, like an uncle or something, like turned them onto it. My dad didn't like really turn me onto it. It was just there, and I like stuck into it. But I also like didn't really get into kind of like underground rock and roll or even the stuff that I like now really until like the past 10, 15 years. So that's less of like a coming of age moment and more of just like osmosis type thing. So yeah, I'm a sponge more than a human being, I guess. So.
What were some of the first like underground or like DIY bands that you got into?
Fuck, that's a hard one. I think the ones that kind of set me on the track where I've been in the past 10 years were a lot of the like 2000s noise rock stuff. So like Airborne Radar and Pre or AIDS Wolf or something like that, and kind of going a little bit further back to like Brainiac and some of that like art punk stuff from the 90s, Six Finger Satellite, crap like that. So stuff that's like a little like, I don't know how you'd put it, annoying.
Were those 2000s bands ones that you were like seeing coming through town, or you just found them on the internet? Or
I found them through Dan, actually, because what it was is
Dan Ohm?
Yes, yeah. Dan Ohm. I played like folk music for a while, and before that, like
that was as Brother Bird.
That was Brother Bird. Good God, how do you fucking know about that?
The internet knows everything, JB.
God. So yeah, there was this thing called Brother Bird. Before, like, I mean, I listened to rock and roll in high school, kind of. I was definitely like very confused. I mean, I used to be homeschooled. Then I was in high school and didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But then I kind of like thought I was finding myself and started making folk music like immediately after high school. And like, it was just, I don't know. And then like all this shit happened where my life kind of crumbled. Like my first real girlfriend broke up with me, and I like emotionally spiraled. This is a lot of information I don't really, but I don't fucking care anymore. So I emotionally spiraled, and kind of just wanted to change. And I started hanging out with Dan Ohm a lot and just smoking a lot of weed and listening to these albums and just being like, holy shit, there's so much you can do with a guitar sound besides just the same 3 chords. And not, even with the same 3 chords, you can do more sound than just like plucking away on an acoustic guitar. And it kind of just opened up my mind to the idea that I could actually get loud and abrasive and kind of it feels good. So
yeah, it's I mean, and I think it's always nice, meeting other people who rock and roll has ruined their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's good shit.
It's kind of it's kind of validating in a way. I was actually thinking that the other night. Every time I actually do get myself to crawl out of my room and go and hang out with people, I went to Dave's Stagecoach, and there's like all the garage rockers who otherwise would be at Blind Tiger if that was still around. And I just had a sense of belonging, even though I didn't even talk to anyone for very long. It was just kind of like, you know what, we're all fucked. And it's kind of a good feeling to know that you're not fucked by yourself, that there's other people who have also decided that they kind of reject the way that the mainstream culture works and want to make their own world and their own life in kind of the decaying shell of this one.
Oh yeah. So, like even like in recent weeks, I'm like, man, I have like a lot of kind of big plans and stuff, and then I'm like kind of stressed out by it. But then even after I'm done thinking about that, I'm like, oh, it's okay. Like, even if I don't succeed at all these big things I want to do, I have this community that will still support me.
Absolutely.
And these great musicians and shows I can go to all the time and not go broke.
Yeah. And that's something that has been kind of hard for me to, like, I'm a pretty inconsistent person emotionally, and a lot of it comes from issues that I have. And like this past week, I blew up a little bit, flared up a little bit on social media, and was kind of just like lashing out at the scene because I feel like I'm, feeling like an outsider. But like, it really does come down to that, where there is just like, you can always kind of rely on this place. You can always kind of rely on the community that's here. And it's good. It's got a lot of positives to it. Yeah. So, okay, that was not me fucking brown nosing you all, anyways. Because I'll tell you, I think you all are full of shit. Sorry. I'm really not. I don't know how to like voice any of this. If I'm supposed to like direct it at anyone or just keep it like I don't get interviewed very often, obviously. So let's go to the next question.
More stuff that you might get upset at me for bringing up, but we can make it quick.
That's fine. That's fine.
Another early musical thing of yours. You were in a band called Demon Horse.
Yeah,
that was a punk band.
Sorry.
No, and it's cool because I was doing some research for the episode, and Angelise, who's moving in here, was in that band with you.
Yes. That's true.
And how'd that band get started?
It was actually just me and Dan sitting around listening to those records.
So that was like the first like actual band that you really started?
It was just a 2-piece at first. It was just Dan and I just jamming at his parents' house in Olathe. And me like taking a guitar and making up a random tuning. I just fucking went through and just try to like make the strings sound right based on intervals I was just making up. I mean, I didn't even know what intervals were at the time, but I made a tuning for the guitar and started making up chords for it. And then Dan was just really starting to play drums, so it was kind of a chance for him to like practice playing drums. So we just fucked around for a while, and then started kind of making loose structures for songs, and then kind of just had like an improvisational aspect to it. Then we played like random shows at the Pistol or whatever, and then we met Angelise at the info shop. I think it was still called Crossroads Info Shop, but it was like right before it got called Mutiny. And we just met and started volunteering there, and just started hanging out with Angelise and became friends with her, and then she became the vocalist for Demon Horse. There was also like, there's none of the recordings for it, but
there is a cassette, isn't there?
There is. There's 2 cassettes, but one of them is the 2-piece and one's with the 3-piece, where Angelise doing vocals. But we also had an old roommate of ours at this house on 3911 Central. His name was Mark, and he like played trumpet in the band.
Yeah, I saw a picture of someone playing the trumpet. I think it was like one of Megan Carson's pictures.
Yeah, it didn't.
I'm like, I had a trumpet player.
It did not last very long. We played a show,
but he wasn't on the recordings.
No. Yeah. There was like a bit of a falling out too with him. He was that's something I don't really want to get into too much, but there was like a show that he played with us that someone came up afterwards was just like, you guys were great, but I really hated that trumpet player. And then we were just like, all right, we'll just not even play trumpet with us anymore, which is terrible. But when you're young and impressionable, it's hard not to just be like, oh yeah, good point, and then just like be an asshole to someone like that. I feel bad.
I guess that's a good tip. Like if there's a band and something bothers you about that band, you should go up and tell them that.
Because they'll change it immediately. Just immediately. Like that.
I don't know if I've ever heard about that happening to anyone. That's awesome.
I mean, I bet it happens more often than people would like to admit. Because
but I guess I think it's more of a style thing. I think usually
definitely.
You guys kind of look dumb dressing up like that, or
right. And then you get kind of embarrassed, but you don't want to admit that you're embarrassed because nobody wants to admit they're embarrassed. Nobody wants to admit that they were like shooken in any way, so they'll just like change it kind of clandestinely and be like, oh yeah,
slow transition.
Yeah, exactly.
But
which I think is actually what we did with Mark was like a slow transition. So sorry, Mark.
But no, you also mentioned you're volunteering at the Crossroads Info Shop. What happened at that spot? Yeah,
I don't really know. I think the main dude that like owned all the materials there, funny enough, owned in an anarchist bookstore. But the main dude who like supplied the library there, it decided that he didn't want to like deal with the collective of people that were helping run that place and pay rent there, and pulled all of his stuff out and took it back to like I think he's living with his parents and. I don't want to badmouth another anarchist, but like I think he's like living with his fucking parents and somewhere in like Shawnee or something like that.
No, but like what kind of like events and like stuff happened at the shop though? Like
that's what you're asking. You're asking for drama. You're asking for okay, can you edit that out? That's fucking bad.
We'll keep that.
Oh my god, I sound like a toxic vampire, just like
no, I'm sorry. That's not how I meant to phrase it, I guess.
Well, there was like there was some good shows there. I'm pretty sure I saw.
So it was like out of a house or like a storefront.
It was a storefront at 31st and Troost. Where like all those like it used to be way back in the day in the 1920s, 30s. It was known as Millionaires Row, but it's like and where there's all like the fucking jewelry stores and shit, and all the rich people shopped in town. But it's now like there's like a Troost Max bus stop there, and like it's like mostly abandoned retail just there in that block between 31st and Linwood.
But I think they are kind of like revitalizing it.
Yeah, now. I'm sure it'll end up being like a bunch of like boutique shops and stuff like that. I mean, I don't care. Good job for capitalism, hooray, whatever. I mean, at least the retail stuff will get some use, but I don't know, it'll be boring, and I won't ever go there.
Yeah, so it was like a little bookstore, zine shop.
Yeah, it was a lending library. It was an info shop, so it had like all the aspects of like you could check something out and bring it back. You could also buy like a brand new book of work. So it was good. It was like in a kind of a complex that used to be a mall in the back of it, even though most of it was decaying. But they had a lot of room to like use stuff, and there was like a lot of grandiose plans of what they were going to do with it. Like turn a lot of the rooms into workshops, so there would be like that element to it where people could come in and like work on things and like basically just build a sustainable community out of there. And it just never came about, unfortunately. But yeah, there's some good shows there. I'm pretty sure. There was like a No Master show. It was either No Master or Nick Allred had a band that I'm pretty sure that
Suck Dry?
It was Suck Dry. It was either No Master or Suck Dry played there, and then like the fire marshal came and shut it down, and that was really fucking weird. And because after that point it became kind of obvious that the city wasn't gonna let like anarchists and punks kind of like coalesce in a space together. So I don't know, but it was a good info shop when it lasted. Kind of missed it.
How long would you say it ran? Like
way before I was in Kansas City. It's got to have been around because people had talked about it because it used to be actually in the Crossroads, which is why it had that name. And I think it had been around since I'm gonna throw out an arbitrary date here, but I'm probably close. I want to say 2005, maybe 2004, 2005. and then closed around 2010 or 11. So
I feel like that's still a pretty solid run
for an info shop,
DIY spot.
Any kind of DIY spot. That's impressive because when you don't have like cash flow coming in and you got to pay rent, that's really fucking impressive. So,
and around the time that you were playing in Demon Horse, you also started your project All Blood, right?
Yeah.
Now, that kind of just started off as, like, home recordings that you were doing?
Yeah, I was, started off with a 4-track, like a really crappy Tascam, and just, like, had all these songs that I'd been working on. Actually, no, the first tape was on Dan Ohm's laptop. I recorded it on his laptop and then just made a tape for this tour I did when I went to the West Coast with my friends in this like folk band thing called Your Yellow Dress, tweed, cheesy kind of stuff. But I love them, but yeah, it was cheesy. But I went to the West Coast with them and played some songs and stuff, and then had that tape. And then after that, it just became a home recording, bedroom recording thing where I was trying to make pretentious concept albums about the apocalypse and stuff like that. So,
and then it turned into kind of a full band after a little bit? Yeah,
because I had tried to make it into a full band a few times. There was one time where I had Megan Carson playing drums and Colleen O'Donnell was like playing synth or just like a Casio keyboard. But they weren't really I don't think they really were into it that much. And I was not really motivated to make a live band aspect, but then over time, Zach, I ended up living with Zach in 2012, and then we started slowly kind of making music together and getting that feel down. And then we met Zach Campbell. Or how the hell we met Zach Campbell? Someone I feel introduced us to him, but I can't remember who it was. I want to say somehow it was through Dan Ohm knowing the dudes from Fag Cop, Kenneth and Nate, and them somehow suggesting Zach Campbell to us, but sure, why not? I was drinking a lot at that time. But we ended up meeting with him and then practicing and taking some of the songs that I'd recorded before in the bedroom setting and playing them live, and then they started contributing their own songs. And then we also had this dude, Justin, that was playing with us. And then, it became a full 4-piece band with everybody contributing songs. It was pretty great, actually. Band would have been good.
And I think it was the only time I actually saw you guys, though, was when you were opening for Nancy, and I think it was Nancy and Sheer Mag at the Dollhouse at the time.
It wasn't Sheer Mag. It was Nancy, and then it was a hardcore band that somebody in Nancy, I think, was related to or something like that, or maybe someone was joking about that. But it was some band a hardcore band from Chicago, but I can't remember what they were called.
Thumbsuckers.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
That was a good show.
Wayne Payne and the Shit Stains.
Yeah, played. Yeah,
that was
in full garb.
No, that was tight, and they had a little coffin thing that
Kenneth came in on it, right? Or he was in it, and then he came out of the fucking box when they.
Yeah, and they people were rolling it across the basement too.
Yeah,
it had wheels on it. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's great showmanship. I always wish I could pull that kind of showmanship out for a show because that's so good.
No, I think that was the only time I saw that band and All Blood.
Yeah,
that was a fun show. Was that the last All Blood show?
No, our last show was in that October of that year. We got back from a tour and things were kind of stressful, and then because I'd already had enough of that Justin dude because he's a piece of shit. He would regularly say racial slurs because he thought he was being edgy and funny.
That's not fun.
No, and he was also just an abusive prick to his girlfriend and an alcoholic and just a terrible human being. And not trying to justify what I did, but on our last show, he was already complaining about the fact that we were gonna play last because I was we need to go last so that the touring band people stay for the touring band because a lot of people were there for us because at that point we were kind of at a little bit of a peak. And he was all against it, so we ended up playing and he kind of just was slopping through the set and I felt he was just doing it intentionally as a jab, and I fucking lost it and started beating him on the head with the headstock of my guitar and then stomping him when he was on the ground. So not the greatest situation. I was definitely on a lot of speed when that happened too, so but I also don't really regret it because I hate that motherfucker with a passion. So if you're watching this, Justin, which I doubt you will because you're not really capable of getting outside of your own asshole, fuck you. There you go. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that on camera.
We're all about giving a platform to people who want to rekindle fights from Subway.
God damn.
That's rock and roll for you.
Yeah,
though, right?
It is a lot of rivalries and pettiness, unfortunately, sometimes. But there's good.
And briefly, I want to touch on you also spent a little time in Lazy and the Conquerors also.
Yeah. The Conquerors thing was really short-lived. I was like kind of doing like playing a little bit of like secondary guitar and doing drums. This was at the very beginning of Conquerors, when Rory went from Wrong Crowd and decided he wanted to do a little bit more of like a psychedelic thing. Mm-hmm. So we started jamming in that house 3911 Central in the basement. It was like him and Mikey Pruitt and Pat Rocha was in the band playing synth. I mean, it was like a completely different thing from what the Conquerors are now. But yeah, the first iteration of Conquerors, I was in that. And then Lazy, I played bass for a tour that they did going to the Northeast and back, like a 2-week tour up to New York City and back. But I was like never on any recordings or anything like that.
And that's always like Lazy kind of seems like they do just kind of have like a constantly rotating lineup too.
Yeah, it was basically just Brock and his songs.
Yeah, but like I feel like I'd seen Lazy like a few years ago, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. But then I saw them like 1 or 2 years ago, and I'm like, whoa, this is way different, and I like this more.
Yeah, they got really good. They started getting really good and really tight.
They haven't been playing as much lately.
They don't really exist anymore.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Brock doesn't live in Kansas City. He lives somewhere in Kansas, I think, wherever his dad's at. That's a whole thing I definitely will not get into on this podcast, because that's not my thing. So
that's all right. Yeah. So, and most recently, you started a band called Little Toughies a year or two ago, and that slowly turned into what we know as Salty.
Yeah.
The first Little Toughies recordings, that was all you.
Actually, right? No. It was the band. So it was. Basically, Zach and I decided Zach Turner, the synth player, and I decided that we were gonna like kind of try to continue what we had going with All Blood, albeit it was just like me doing the songwriting. Or I guess maybe I just decided it with my ego. I don't know. Because I wanted to get back in the game, and because immediately after All Blood, Zach and Justin started doing stuff with Wet Ones, and Zach was getting active again with Rooftop Vigilantes and stuff, and I was like, nobody wants to play music with me because I just beat up someone I was in a band with. So I was desperate to get something going. So we got together, and we're like, well, if we can't find a drummer, let's just use a drum machine. And we programmed some beats into a drum machine, and then just Zach and I and a drum machine. Then we realized, we need kind of a bass sound, so we got Andrew Erdrich. Oh God, I hope I'm not saying his name wrong. I'm sorry, dude, if I am. He played like baritone guitar on it for the bass sound, and that's kind of, it was that situation. And then we did a tour in like March of 2016 with that set up with the drum machine, and it was a fucking disaster. And we realized that if we wanted to make the song sound good and kind of get it to be a real band that people would take seriously, we had to actually get a real drummer. And I was working at, I'm just going to tell you the whole story because it's fun. Yeah. I was working at Food, that vegan restaurant on the west side, and this dude, Ethan Eckert, was working there. And had just started working there, was doing dishes and stuff. And Sam and Ethan's girlfriend, Audrey, kind of like suggested that I give him a chance to try playing drums with us. And I did, and it was like immediate, just like he's the fucking dude, because he like not only just like heard the Little Toughy songs that we had recorded and was able to like emulate the drum machine perfectly, which is crazy because the drum machine parts that we had programmed were fucking ridiculous. But he also was able to like adapt to new songs that we were working on and just had like a really perfect sense of rhythm. Sometimes it would be a little excessive, but I loved it because of that excessiveness. So, and then after some complications, I had to kick Andrew out. We got another bass player, Jess. Well, he goes by Jess Hub, but it's not his real last name. But he's like a really talented bass player. So now we've got this 4-piece where it's Zach Turner playing synth and Jess Lay playing bass and Ethan playing drums and me playing guitar and singing. and it's just perfect. It's what I've wanted for a long time. It's good.
And so back when you were writing the first like Little Tuffy songs and everything, was your songwriting process like this kind of the same as it was back with All Blood, or did you switch things up?
It's always been the same. I'll fuck around on a guitar for a while and try to write a riff or two, and just maybe if I have two disparate riffs, I'll try to like connect them in some way. But I'll usually just hack away at my guitar until I get a melody out of it, and then I'll just like start thinking of the different elements. Like, what does the riff make me think of? What like thematically? Like, how can I write some lyrics around it? How would I do the lyrics rhythmically with the melody? Blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff, and then just like start putting those different elements together until I have a song. I write it basically the way I've written songs since I've made folk music. Like that part of it hasn't really changed a lot. Now the difference is like, tone and just like technicalities change a lot, and especially now that we're like recording in a studio, there's so much stuff that we're doing right now that I've never tried before. So basically the songwriting never stops. The songwriting goes into the studio, and then I'm with overdubs and everything, like it's continuing there. When new ideas pop up, I'm just adding to the song, or we're adding the song, because I'm not the only one coming with ideas. Everyone in the band is coming up with ideas to add to it. So but yeah, that's basically the process. It's just it's constant until we finally get to the point where we're just like, all right, this song is done, either recorded or in rehearsal. We're just like, or in practice, we're just like, this is it. This is the song. This is how it's gonna sound. And it takes like a few months. Like it's never like immediate, but it gets there. So.
Yeah, so it's a little different, I feel like, from like the regular bands, punk, or at least like punk DIY bands, like recording process.
Those bands can churn them out. Like Wet Ones was a good example. Like they got off the ground running, which is why I felt so kind of like insecure and a little bit resentful about it at the time. Is like they went in with like that old school rock and roll approach, where it's just like fuck it all, just like play a riff and just make a song.
Yeah,
and play another
they pounded out like 20 songs, like real quick.
Yeah, and the thing too is they're all really good fucking songs. They're all rippers, and that's like, I just don't my mind just doesn't work that way. I don't operate that way. I'm very OCD kind of in that. Kind of. I don't know.
Well, I feel like in like. As a result, though, like your songs can be a little more like complex and thoughtful than songs you just pound out. Like they're both great for different reasons. But yeah. I'm
always worried that it does get a little convoluted, because I think like sometimes when the message is a little bit more simple, it reaches people a little bit better. And that's been kind of a thing I've wanted to do, is just pull back a bit and not be so grandiose about things. But I'm also just like, I like, like the punk rejection of like a lot of the grandiose stuff from 70s rock, and that's like kind of the origin of punk rock, is that I actually like a lot of that grandiose shit, I like a lot of that prog rock. I like a lot of the
big into Rush.
Rock. I'm not a big Rush fan. Yeah, my drummer and the drummer and bass player in Salty like that band. It's just cheap. That shit's cheesy to me.
What are the big 70s bands that you like?
I like Yes, and I like King Crimson, and I do like Queen, and I like all the Brian Eno stuff and Roxy music. And
you channel a little like Freddie Mercury sometimes.
I wish I could fucking have that kind of range. There's no goddamn way. That shit's insane. I mean, I've tried to sing Queen songs at karaoke before, but it's like it's always a shit show. So. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that stuff that's just like, I mean, even like Foreigner, I'll listen to that and enjoy it. I don't care. I have no qualms with that stuff anymore. I think at a certain time, in a certain historical context, that stuff had to be rejected, because it was straying away from the countercultural.
Yeah, you can't let it go too far.
Right. It did become just like ego stroking, and it's just like, and yeah, some of the prog rock just like gets to the point where it's just like, okay, we get the point. You can write technically, complex songs, but it's just masturbatory after a while. Yeah. And so I want the middle ground between the two. I want I want a riff that has a repetition to it, that when you listen to it, you can hear the repetition to it, and you can connect with it on like a human level, on like on an emotional level. But you also are just like, whoa, what the fuck did they do there? You know what I mean? Yeah. I want both. I don't want to be like painted into a corner as, you know, being, this is my specific sound and this is how we're gonna like market our brand to people, and that's how everyone's gonna know what Salty is. Salty is they're fitting in with this scene and this network of bands and whatever, which I'm not like trying to judge the way music's done nowadays, because it's a lot more difficult as the music industry has been like kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? I guess like the means to music has become more proliferated, you know, like it's so that everyone, there's like so many bands now, so like the way to like kind of get some kind of success or like some momentum is to like clump together in networks and stuff like that. But I feel like you get a little too it gets a little paint by numbers at a certain point, and I just want to avoid that. And I'm not trying to like say that I'm like super special and I like everything I touch is gold, but you know, that's just my goal is that, so whatever.
I did want to ask you, like, when you started this group, it was called Little Toughies, yeah, and then you ended up switching it to Salty. Is that just because the member switches, or was it primarily you want a different name?
There's a band in Lawrence called Toughies.
No, there is, but I was really excited. I was excited that there were two bands with Toughies in the name, because I'm like, oh, they could play with each other, and like, it could be like a fight, it could be like a fun thing like that.
I really regret changing the name to Salty, because Little Toughies is funny. Like, Little Toughies is so much goofier, and it definitely fits the ideal a bit more, because I was trying to make fun of like that Wet One stuff. I was trying to make fun of the Wayne Payne and the Shit Stain stuff and the Phantom Head stuff and the fucking Chasm stuff and all that, you know, the tough bands in Kansas City, or even like all the hardcore stuff, you know. I wanted to make fun of like the just machismo of it all, of the aggression, because it just always felt kind of like it came from a little bit of like a contrived place. So I was just like, all right, sure, Little Toughies, we're all just a bunch of little toughies, and I wanted to fucking go off of that. But then, like, you know, the band in Lawrence was just kind of like, I try to like go out on some like, you know, button pushing with them and try to piss them off, because I'm also just like a fucking, I don't know what is my problem. And it didn't go well, and I realized that it wasn't going to go anywhere good, and I was just going to like let them have their thing, and I couldn't find any bands around here called Salty. And at first, when I looked online, I was like, all right, this is good. And I thought it was kind of funny, like in the same vein as like Lazy or something like that, you know, taking like an adjective of the time. Yeah, an adjective of the time, and like it's almost like if we were a band in the 60s calling ourselves groovy or something like that. Yeah. It just like, and then making it a band, it's so like temporary that it's already going to be like anachronistic in like 3 fucking years or something. So I enjoy that. I thought that was funny at the time, but now I'm just like, what the fuck was I thinking? Salty's like the worst name for a band.
Okay, I think it's grown with time though, because at first I was like, Little Toughies is such a cool, like, it's just generally a cooler name. Yeah. But now, like, over the last, like, several months, I would even say, I've warmed up to Salty because... Awesome. No, just because...
I am a salty person, so...
yeah. I'm feeling a little salty, too. Yeah. No, but just because it gives you guys more... I think there's more of an opening for it to have, like, its own personality and, like, its own... Like, because you have the fry cook hats, like, for the merch, and, like, it... You know,
there's a lot more stuff to work with. Like, I feel like if Little Toughies, like,
it's a more fun theme.
Yeah. And I love theme bands. I love them. Like that band, The Wad, or what is it, Wad or The Wad? I don't know if there's a the in it or not. Who cares? But where the dude like is in a fucking like full on.
The balloon suit thing?
Yeah, but it's like I thought it was like paper mache. Like the videos I've watched, it looks like he just made a fucking paper mache.
Oh, maybe it's something different.
Have you seen this band or heard them?
I feel like I have seen a band called. But maybe it's a different.
One of Ian Teeple's bands played with them, and that's like where my introduction to them came from. But I watched the video that they played at the Pin Valley Skate Park, and it was so funny just like seeing somebody in like this, like, it wasn't even a costume, it was like armor. It was like a building that he was inside that looked like a wad of like trash or whatever, or goo, and with the rest of the band around him while people were skating around, and he was just like singing these songs in this like high pitched frantic manner, and it was just that's the kind of bands I like. Bands that have like the full thing going on, not just like the music, but like they have like a theme and like okay, hold up a second. because I'm contradicting what I said earlier, because that's totally paint by numbers too. Forget it. Never mind. I don't know. I do like.
What other fun theme bands can you think of?
Devo. I like Devo. I do fucking love Devo. It's
probably like a big influence on Salty.
It is a huge influence, and I'm sure it's fucking obvious to anyone that hears us that Devo is like a big influence. I mean, I didn't start listening to them until 2010, 2011 when I was living at the Central House, and then like really just like fell in love with the band, because like before that I was like, oh, new wave is cheesy, because I thought that's what I was supposed to think. Sometimes you get into a point in your life where you're like you think things that you're supposed to think or whatever. Yeah. But I started listening to it when I stopped caring, and I was like, this band is amazing, and it kind of like says all the things that I feel about humanity in general. So yeah, I love the way they sound and everything. So yeah, Devo's good. Other good themed bands, let's see. Erebon Radar was a good one. That was kind of actually a little offensive, because they started off like by acting like they had mental disabilities, which nowadays in the 2010s and especially now is not fucking cool and not okay. So I think at the time it was like considered edgier or something. I think we're like kind of moving away as a society from the idea that edginess is like somehow subversive, and as opposed to just like
not being a dick.
yeah. Like now like that kind of like idea of like being edgy, the reason it's not subversive anymore is because it just kind of props up the institutions that are already in power. There's nothing subversive about propping up that shit. That's like that's just that. Yeah. Anyways,
and probably more importantly, it's just kind of played out.
Like, yeah, it is. It's so fucking played out. It's so fucking played out, and I'm done with it. But it worked well for them, I guess. Man, I don't know. Theme bands, there's not a lot of people that pull it off well, unfortunately. Yeah. If I had more time to think about it, I could definitely think of ones that I like.
Yeah. But what else do you think has inspired your songwriting recently? Or at least, or even like going back on like All Blood or any of those bands?
Oh, fuck. Well, with All Blood, there was also a lot of like the influence from the folk days. Like I'd always been like a fan of like music from the Northwest, to like Olympia stuff, like I wouldn't even say Olympia, but I was always like kind of like a big Microphones, Mount Erie fan, so like some of that wimpier, softer kind of indie pop, indie rock stuff. I really liked Mount Erie for a long time. I still will occasionally listen to it, but that definitely had an influence on some of the songwriting where it's a little more melodramatic. Who else?
Is other like new wave stuff important to you, or just Devo?
Yeah, I like the Units a lot. A lot of the synth punk stuff. I mean, the Screamers are definitely a fucking influence. There's so much Screamers like demo stuff to go through, though I haven't even like gone through all of it. But I love
in addition to like hardcore Devo. And, they have their own.
Yeah, they have their own like giant library of demos. It's impressive. It's daunting. But yeah, all the synth punk bands, and there's like some like, man, I'm so bad at like pulling them up on the spot like this, because I'm not. I don't know. When I end up listening to a band, it's because I'm like, it pops into my brain, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to listen to that now. I almost forgot about that band because I don't have like physical copies and everything anymore. I sold off most of my stuff to, support my drug habits and my whoring and everything. So it's been kind of rough. Anyways, just kidding. That was so fucking stupid.
No, but okay, just we can move on from that. No, but but where do you would you say that Salty's music has really evolved since like the Lil Teffy tracks, then Preservation Blues, which is the album from last year, and then on to the new album?
Oh yeah.
Where would you say stuff has moved since then?
It's a lot more refined. I think a lot of that has to do with Ethan and Jess just being insanely good musicians. They're like where Zach and I are more like songwriters. They're more like musicians, like a musician's musician, and they just have like that ability to just drive a song in a way that wasn't the case before.
I guess it's good to have like a 50-50 split.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's kind of weird sometimes because like they do have like almost wildly different taste. I mean, we all like rock and roll. It's just like we all like different types of rock and roll, but I think that brings a lot more like diversity to the sound. So I'm okay with that. But there is like some weird aspects to it, But I like it. It's great. But we're definitely like a lot tighter now. We've gone on 2 mini tours this year, and it's like made us a lot tighter. And I just think we have a better feel for each other. It's hard to explain, but there's like this kind of like connection that you end up building with people when you play music with them long enough, where you can kind of just read them. You kind of read their body language and shit, and like can kind of predict where they're going with their music or what they're going to play, whatever part they're going to add to the song, and it becomes kind of this give and take. And we've gotten it down, not to science yet, but definitely close. So it's definitely better. The stuff we're doing in the studio right now is
some fire.
It is very delicious. It's very fucking delicious.
Savory.
It's some savory, just a light touch of salt. It's not as salty as Preservation Blues was.
It's called dry rub.
It's called dry rub because it's a mixture of spices. It's actually, and it really is kind of a hodgepodge because like there's not like a similarity between every single song. It kind of jumps around a lot, but it's fucking good. I mean, I'm gonna say that about my own album. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's gonna be, when it's done, it's gonna make people shit themselves. It's so fucking good in a good way, like not like a food poisoning way. Since we're going with the food metaphors, it's not like in an excitement. Maybe like you're so excited to.
I mean, you probably shouldn't eat the cassette, but
yeah, probably avoid that because I don't think you
eat it with your ears.
The magnet tapes, the tape magnet, that can't be good for you, right? I mean,
you get all those plastic shards. Yeah. That's not good for anyone,
Well, on that note.
But yeah, I wanted to give you a moment to have a soapbox, if you would like. Okay. So,
I've got so many things to say.
No, yeah, I'll just go off, JB. Like, no, what do you like? You're very outspoken on Facebook about like Kansas City music and all, DIY scene and all that. So what has been on your mind regarding that lately? Is there anything you want to talk about?
I think there's a lot of manufactured... Okay. Oh, God, here we go.
Strap on the seatbelts.
This is going to get me into so much fucking hot water, I'm sure, but
don't say anything you don't want to.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of, like, manufactured disappointment with the city. I think a lot of it is like people feeling like they need to like repeat the same formulas of what punk has rallied against before in the past, instead of like kind of coming to their own, like, coming to terms or the grips with their own destiny. Kansas City is not fucking New York in the 70s. It's or LA in the early 80s or anything like that. It's not the same fucking thing, but everyone kind of like is like trying to like build that world, and I get it, but that shit drives me fucking nuts. We're like a whole different fucking ball game. It's a whole different historical situation. It's a whole different scene. It's a whole different like aesthetic sound. Like we should just be our own thing and be happy with it instead of like trying to repeat stuff before, because I just feel like a lot of people just buy into these identities instead of like trying to build their own, and then it's kind of weak. It's
like, in what regards would you say that we're trying to mirror like LA or New York? Like just sound wise,
but I also think like kind of fashion wise too. And I know that's kind of superficial and petty to pull that out. And as I wear a fucking jean jacket, like I'm just like right out of a fucking Urban Outfitters ad. But I mean, when I say these criticisms, a lot of the times I'm saying it about myself too, because I'm not just like trying to like outwardly put this on other people. Like I feel like I do the same fucking thing too. Like, like I said, like I've been listening to a lot of music from the 70s and 80s, and I definitely like pick from them and pull from them. But I think there's a difference. I think we need to like focus more on like synthesizing our own thing instead of just being like, there's like this kind of myth that we're at the end of music. Everything that has been done, that can be done, has been done. That there's like a limitation to music, and then like to an extent there's like a parameter of like frequency of sound that you can hear. So yeah, there is like technically a finite amount of types of music, but like there's no one even like oh god, I'm just gonna sound like a pretentious asshole, and I'm not trying to, but like I mean like there's so much to do that there's so much we can do that I feel like we just are painting ourselves into a corner, and I think it's stupid. I also think that there's a lot of like passive aggression, and that is also something I engage in. So it's also partly my fault. There's a lot of passive aggression, I think, from different like corners of the scene, and I don't think we're ever gonna build anything good here until we stop like bitching and moaning about Kansas City and like start actually like just doing shit, which I think people are doing. Yeah, I just see a lot of people are being a lot more active than they were before. Because like 5 years ago, it was nothing but just people complaining and like making really great bands, but never having any longevity to them because they would just sabotage it after a while. Because it was just like it was easier to just play into the whole everything is fucking doomed and I don't want to give a shit anymore, and then just start it all over again. And I think we're finally getting to a point where we can kind of cross that threshold and just keep our projects going and kind of keep some longevity to it. But yeah, that's another thing. And then I don't know. I think there just needs to be more. I wish there was like a gathering place or like somewhere where like a physical location that didn't have to do with like consuming something that you could get fucked up on or whatever, that we could like get together and like talk about shit, like a public forum that's not
so like a place like the info shop, you think?
Yeah, that would be, I mean, but even better, like something that didn't even have a political connotation to it, because I feel like even then, like when you do that, you frame it within a specific kind of dialogue, and then you're basically you're reducing what you can talk about to anarchism, you know. And I think just the same way that if you go to a bar, you're reducing it to getting drunk, you know, and or going to playing at a record store, or going to a record store is like buying records. It's like there needs to be something that's such a blank place, like a plaza, like a not like the plaza, but like a plaza or like an amphitheater. I don't fucking know. Like I don't know. There's like public spaces in other countries and even in other places in the United States that I don't think that we just don't have in Kansas City, because it almost feels like everything is like kind of cellular in a way. Like we just have like little spots that we go to, we drive to in our car, we drive to the shopping centers or the entertainment districts or the, you know, the residential areas or whatever, because it's all so zoned like that, like zoned so specifically.
Are there any like cities or like venues or areas that you are thinking of when you?
No, that's the problem. I can't really think of like a specific example. It's more of just like a vague idea.
Not like a Gilman Street or like.
Oh, you mean here?
Well, no. Like places that you would want to mirror.
That's
like,
See, that's the thing. I don't really know. I feel like I've heard of examples, and that's why I've got the idea in the back of my head, but I can't like cite it now.
But you'd want like to be able to have shows somewhere.
Yeah.
But also like not be selling stuff or like.
I think it would be cool to just have a DIY space. I think like what Awful House is doing is great, because but see, it's still like a living spot, so people live there, so it's still within that context, and it's still within the politics of the people who live there. It'd be cool if there was like a place that was just not even rented, but just bought and owned. And this is like a total pipe fantasy thing, but it was just bought and owned, big giant space. Nobody lives there. Nobody's like necessarily connected to it so much. Like everyone just like volunteers. Like there's like a rotating cast of volunteers or whatever. So there's not like there's like a constant power vacuum. There's nobody who's like just leading it with their fucking ego. And it is a place where people can go to do multiple things. They can go there to work on projects, to present
like
things.
Visual art, music,
anything.
Workshop stuff.
And I think everything here just gets like, it just gets kind of forced through the meat grinder of like whatever.
Like the venue that stuff ends up at ends up having too much of an influence on what's happening.
Because it has to. Because if you're dependent on that resource, like you're gonna bend to the will of whatever those people want from you, and I don't think that's conducive to, you know, building good art or free art, you know, and that's something I think Kansas City really needs, and I think it's something that would also improve our ability to communicate with each other and have better dialogue and have a better scene, and probably a stronger scene that most cities have. And I mean, I don't know how to go about that unless one of us wins the fucking lottery and can buy a warehouse in the West Bottoms or something. You know, I mean, it would probably take something like that, or, you know, a long like period of just saving up money and like trying to like.
a really big GoFundMe.
Yeah, in the millions. Because now that Kansas City has become popular with real estate agents or realtors who want to like fucking funnel their money from the coasts into this tax haven here, the chances of us being able to buy a property when the market's like this is not good, unfortunately. Yeah. So,
is there any city politics that you want to touch on, or?
I do want to kind of clarify my position on some of this stuff, because like I do like kind of jump back and forth between like supporting urbanist stuff and like anarchist stuff, and I know that seems like completely like contradictory things. I do think it's important for us to get more people into this city, and I do think it's important because we need to think about the fact that we have infrastructure that's crumbling, not just buildings that have been sitting in disrepair for so long, but also like sewage lines and streets and the electric grid and all this stuff that without us getting a like net positive growth of population, we won't be able to afford paying for. I mean, it's the shit that's happening in Detroit is like the population just dumps out of the urban core, and basically what happened to Kansas City between the 60s and the 90s with white flight, where like all this divestment happened and all the money left and everything fucking crumbled. We need to like kind of I think we need to have, as long as we're stuck with capitalism at the moment, that, you know, as long as we're like kind of stuck, like, you know, bending to the will of the markets, I feel like we should have a little bit of gentrification and be okay with it, because we need to fucking get people back into the city. But I also think like a lot of like the tax increment financing stuff is a complete joke, giving subsidies to rich people who, if the market demand is there, then they can pay the full fucking cost. They shouldn't be diverting, because that's the whole point. If we're getting people in to help the tax coffers of the city, then why are we like diverting some of that money for the next 10, 15 years? We need it now. We need that money now for the infrastructure.
Offering Amazon and other giant companies
absolutely not
subsidies and whatnot.
And the whole argument, where they're going to make jobs. Well, it's like, well, yeah, but they're going to bring those jobs from other places. It's not going to be Kansas Cityans who are getting the jobs. We don't have the population of people with bachelors and master's degrees in tech sectors to like fill those jobs necessarily. I mean, granted, they'll definitely hire locals from people who went to like the universities and stuff around here, but even then, it's not people that need the jobs. And the problem is the people that need the jobs in the parts of our community that need to have a better financial standing. They need a better education, and we don't even have that. And if we're deferring money to our education system, then they're never going to get the upward mobility, and we're just going to stay a stratified city, economically stratified, socially stratified, and racially stratified, and it's a fucking mess. And so, yeah, that's something I think is a huge problem. So, like, I support things like expanding the transportation infrastructure. I think we should expand the streetcar. I think we should get better bus service. I think we should definitely make it easier to get around the city and be
at some
connected.
Point, like free transportation.
And that's something that they've talked about, like, because I talked to
we're not making money on the streetcar or the buses. We're losing
we lose money
anyway.
Fare collection loses money, and that's why they made the downtown streetcar free. It was because fare collection costs more money, because at the end of the day, you got to take all that money out of the boxes that are on the buses, and that costs more labor costs, and then you got to keep doing maintenance repair on the fare boxes and stuff like that. So they've realized it actually is a net loss. So a lot of people, from what I've heard, like in KCATA, they've been talking about making the whole system, and not just like in the urban core, but like even like the commuter buses and stuff, like completely free, which would be revolutionary, because you don't have that in any other city in the United States. So hopefully that happens, but we'll see. That's the kind of stuff I do think coming from the top down is good, but there's also a lot of like crony crap going on that's pretty obvious.
If Sly James does want to make this a world-class city, one easy way to do that probably would be, free public transportation.
Let people get around and improve the system so that people can get around realistically. Because the thing is, like, these systems can be paid for with tax money that, it can come from the Amazons and, tech startups and stuff who have the means to do it. Now, I'm sure that part of the community would throw a fucking hissy fit, because they always throw a hissy. I mean, Brookside always throws a hissy fit when even anyone talks about building a bus miles away from them. So, there's so much, just as there is in the scene, there's so much like fractured aspects to the city as a whole and the whole culture here. And I think that's something that'll always kind of be a problem. But yeah.
So next week on the Shuttlecock Politics podcast.
Just
fuck. Joking. No, but I always like hearing, different people's takes on, local government and whatnot. So
cool.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
But I think that's all I wanted to get to. So
yeah, I feel squeezed out like a pastry bag, so I don't know if I got it anymore.
It's appetizing. No, but people can visit shuttlecockmusic.com, and there's a web store on there if you want to get a t-shirt or a button. It's a good way to support the podcast and the website. You can follow at Shuttlecock Mag on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook. We're part of the A.D.D podcast family. And JB, where can people find you and Salty on the internet?
We have a Bandcamp at saltykcmo.bandcamp.com. We also have a Spotify. If you go to Salty, you'll get some extra results. Don't go to any of the other ones because they all suck. Just go to the one that's like a picture, little sideways, and 4 dudes kind of pointing sideways. All Blood is at allblood.bandcamp.com, and I think you can find the Demon Horse stuff on the Exo Press Bandcamp. So a lot of Bandcamp stuff. Yeah. So
awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out on the podcast this week.
My pleasure. This was fun. Cool. Thank you. Let's shake hands on camera.
That'll be the gift.
Yes. Fuck yes.